8:30. Oh well. Hey everybody, welcome back to our Philly.net after show. It took us a little bit longer than usual to get down here tonight, but we're here. So once again, I'm Chris Gomez, and as you can see on the screen, we've got Tim Farrow, who was here with us tonight, and also founded the Philly Azure Group, which many of you who might watch both streams, both at our Philly.net channel and our Philly Azure channels on YouTube, on Twitch, on Mixer, just all over the place, on Twitter. That's where you can get everything that's going on in the Philly area, at least here in our kind of .NET organization coming out of the Microsoft MTC. But we're not just about .NET here.
No.
You can have any developer, any platform, and especially appreciate all of you that are joining us tonight who maybe are seasoned veterans or just learning to code. And we want to know what you think and what your questions are. And if we don't know the answer tonight, we'll certainly find out to make sure that you get the answer. So tonight we talked about Azure DevOps, which is this whole battery of I don't want to say it's just about continuous integration and deployment, because it's not. You manage your whole project from there.
Exactly. No, it's well, first, for those who are unaware, it's a rebranding of VSTS, but it not only was a rebranding, which was Visual Studio Team Services, but it's a whole. Not close enough to mic.
Not close enough.
Sorry. But it was also an addition of a lot of things to that. So not only did they rebrand it as Azure DevOps, which is a much more appropriate name, I think, for what it really is, but
Right.
also they added a bunch of things and refined the pipelines and stuff, which is what we had 2 sessions on tonight.
Yeah, right. But now, so the Azure DevOps name, little unfortunate, because you could not use Azure at all. What I mean is what we would, I think, traditionally think of as Azure, which is cloud services. You could still use Azure DevOps to host your repositories, to do your work tracking, even to build some artifacts, and they might not be destined for the cloud. They could just be some executables that you maybe drop off to a shared folder. I don't know what you do with it after that, but it doesn't have to be to Azure, even though tonight it was a continuous deployment to Azure App Service. That's not required.
Sure. And it doesn't have to go to Azure in the sense that it versus on-prem. It doesn't have to go to Azure in that it could go
To another cloud.
to another cloud.
Yeah.
Or you could be pulling from there. So your pipeline could pull from anywhere, from GitHub or Bitbucket or Azure repos, whatever you want. It could be deploying out with any number of third-party tool as well. So I mean, you could have this as your pipeline, as your glue for a lot of the services you already have and are leveraging. And this is just a good way to kind of pull them all together and do your CI/CD pipelines. And if you're doing DevOps, there's also the CM on the end, which we don't say, which is continuous monitoring.
Oh,
if you're going to do CI/CD, do
that.
CM. Be always monitoring it once it goes live.
So why is that so easy to forget about? Because, we do talk about continuous build, and then maybe we'll even get to the step of getting it deployed, but then it's like, okay, it's out there. We need to know when things either break or how they're performing, and I feel like that gets left out a lot. I think it's easy to leave out.
I think because when people think of a pipeline, they think they have a finite end in mind, which is it got deployed to production. And I think just a lot of people think of it in that manner, but really it's the whole DevOps, the whole process, the whole circle where, production is just one spot, and then you're back to monitoring, and then you're back to dev. It's not a straight line, right? It's a full process around, and that's why continuous monitoring is so important to get you back in to fixing those mistakes or any bugs or anything, and redeploying them faster.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something where I haven't seen the labs that are coming up ahead, but App Insights, I'm guessing, is one of those things we're going to touch into at some point with the labs that we're doing.
Yeah, that's and to be just completely open and transparent about it is starting now, we're going to think about what the next set of labs is about. And I will say, and I'm not the only person that decides, so don't, but I approached it from the standpoint of when I saw Azure DevOps, I saw those 5 logos, the 5 pillars, and that's a term I made up, boards, repos, pipelines, boards, repos, pipelines, is it artifacts and test plans? I think those maybe. I don't know. I think I got it. And so we're kind of going down that list. And I'm looking for something creative to do with artifacts that that might be kind of the really useful to people. They say like, oh my gosh, I want to take that to work. And obviously, we should be able to do something similar with test plans. So to your point, Rich, is that app monitoring isn't even in there.
Yeah.
Right? It should be, but it's not.
Right.
And maybe because we do have 2 more months scheduled, that could be a nice, either maybe you consider it at the end or in the 4th month, we might say, hey, let's make sure we circle back and show you that after you've deployed this stuff, you can get valuable information.
Yeah.
Because the tool is invaluable.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is it invaluable?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, the tooling that's there that you get that you can just flip on with basically a switch when you talk about something like App Insights, right? And you can basically say, well, I don't have to make any changes to my code. I don't have to do anything differently about how I deploy it. Just basically say, enable App Insights. Boom, it's off and running, and it's monitoring those things in the background for you. Being able to look at not only the architecture of your application, like how it looks, how it's laid out, and how that traffic is flowing back and forth between all those parts, the web app, the SQL database, the Cosmo database, what have you. But then also be able to drill into them and see the live stream, like we were trying to do tonight when we were figuring out the issue you were having with that one deployment that we were looking at. Yeah, so like, just to let everybody know, right, the labs tonight are available at, I wish I remembered the link, but I think it's AzureDevOpsLabs.com. Yes. Yep.
And that thing is awesome. I'm really impressed with AzureDevOpsLabs.com in that there aren't just like 3 or 4 getting started labs. It goes deep. Yeah, and it goes deep into saying like, hey.
Yeah. You showed it during the
right
when you entered your session. So if anyone saw Chris's session, talked about the beginning. There's like 20 some at the beginning, just based on what you call those, the main pillars. There we go. It's up on the screen now.
That's
so
just the getting started.
Yeah.
That top
and those are those logos again,
1,
right?
2, 3, 4 by 3, so that's 12. And then if you scroll down to the second section, this is that next level stuff that you're going to want to know as well. Are you trying to integrate with Docker, or are you trying to do something with Terraform or Ansible? I'm just looking at the logos.
I don't think they're all there because I remember I used to commonly see this one. I don't know if that list is complete. Just because I remember there was like use Jenkins as your build server, but you're still using Azure DevOps, which I think after the meetup, somebody came and asked me that very question, like, how might I bring this into the organization? And the thing I've been saying to people, is not that I have a ton of experience with that personally, is that the sales pitch I'm hearing is, we built this as Lego brick. We built it as building block. You can take the whole set, or, hey, we really are deficient here. We're going to start with that. And I know my own organization saw some things they like about that we don't have in our CI/CD today, and it sort of started the conversation of, well, maybe we should think about it. Now, I think it's fair to say Azure DevOps that's cloud. There's no on-prem Azure DevOps like there theoretically was with Team Foundation Server.
There's Azure DevOps Server 2019.
Okay, well,
and it is.
Is that a thing? Is it out?
It is out.
Real? Wow,
it's a thing.
Awesome. Okay.
You don't get the updates as quickly as you do in the online world.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad I asked.
Different of the,
but it does do on-prem.
I didn't know that, so I'm glad I asked that.
Same thing the way VSTS and had TFS. Now it's Azure DevOps, the Azure DevOps piece, and then there's Azure DevOps Server.
Okay, perfect. Because there are still, we like to laugh about it, but there's still some cloud-averse folks, or they might have a huge data center infrastructure already. So
there could be any number of regulatory hurdles that aren't being crossed off yet, that that are internal decisions of why they would have it, or maybe they're just still upgrading from an older version of TFS, and if it's easier to get the DevOps server on-prem before going all the way, that's fine. And like I said, the beauty of Azure DevOps in Azure is you don't have to change everything over to that. You can just pick the pieces you want and integrate with what you have. So if your stuff is already some of it on-prem, great. Hook into that.
Yeah.
You already have a release server that does something great. Hook into that, right?
Yeah.
Just augment with this.
Right.
And utilize that.
So as a personal, just as an indie developer, some things that I've done in the past is that little things I like to do if I start a new project, even really early in the game, even when it's just something personal, is I want to get it into source control quickly. And not only that, I want it to come out of source control cleanly and have, I like to call it F5able,
Yeah.
which is definitely a Visual Studio term, but it doesn't, I don't care what your environment is. It could be npm installable, right? If you're a Node developer, or pippable if you're a Python developer.
Right.
Like, I just want it to come out and work. And sometimes that actually takes a little bit more work. And so that's like level 1. And I could get that working with GitHub. I could get it working with Azure Repos. But what and I've done this before too, because Azure Repos has private repos by default, and even before when it was Visual Studio Team Services, is I might start a project in that land first and say, yeah, I don't, not that I'm really the kind of person that cares what code of mine is on GitHub. I'm not really that kind of person. I've never
Everybody's
cared.
self-kind.
I mean, I've got junk up there just because I want it saved. I wanted my computer to be able to stop working, and I'm cool. Like, that's a world I strive for. But I might have it over in Azure Repos, and then if I really want to, I can just clone it and then push it up to GitHub, and boom, now I'm public. But what I like about this is now here's an opportunity for me to add more to the game. Is first I said, okay, I want to be able to clone and run. Well, wait a second. I want to go one step further. Maybe I should just, on every one of my commits, it should just be out on a free server somewhere. Whether it's a website, whether it's, I don't know what it is. And that, I think, is something we could all practice on our own, even with little baby projects. This might seem like a dumb little website, but why don't I have it building to a free Azure web app? I'm not asking anyone to use it.
Right.
I just want to know that it works. It builds, it runs.
And I think there's some
self-contained.
free Azure pipeline stuff that you can use if you have an open source project,
Well,
right?
that's
Wasn't that a
true,
big
too.
announcement from
Yeah.
When we
Connect
announced
Ignite this
DevOps,
year?
right?
Right, when they announced it, they said if you had an open source project, you'd get some
So public
free-
repo running
public
inside of
repo.
DevOps, you
You get some
got
free
so many free
minutes.
hours of
build minutes
exactly
and
for up to 10
concurrent
projects.
builds, or up to 10,
Like
whatever
10
it was.
parallel jobs, which I'm
Yeah.
not 100% sure what that means, but
Because you can have them building more than one thing at the same time.
all right. And so, but now when they say open source project, do you have to do anything special to qualify for that, or you just make your, I don't know.
If I recall this, and I'm trying to find the
Yeah,
announcement and all
no, sure.
that, but I believe it is if you make, by default, as you said, if you're in DevOps, they're private. And if you
Okay.
make them public projects, then technically
Boom.
you're
Those light up.
Or if
Exactly.
they start in GitHub.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
I said if they start in
Like
GitHub.
starting GitHub and use an open source license
Okay.
or whatever.
I think that was the default use case.
Okay.
It was GitHub and an open source license, and then you qualified to have. And you could do that, and you could have that. I also think if you can, because I think in Azure you get the free tier of the website.
Yeah.
So you could just have it build and push it out and do that. We could also, if you wanted to go kind of a different vein, you could go right into having it just be Docker container, push it
Yes.
out to Docker Hub or to the Azure Container
Right.
registry, depending on what you're doing
Yeah.
or playing around with or
Yeah.
trying to learn. And
Yeah.
that's a way for it to end. And that also, like you were saying before, like I want it to be F5able. I think containers fixes a lot of that, where it is going to be F5able because you're giving it more than just the code
Yep.
and works on my machine.
The whole
You're
environment,
giving
yeah.
them the Docker build, and you're giving them that environment, and they're getting a container, and then there's going to be a container that's pushed out anyway, right? So
Right.
if you're building one, you probably are. You can use Docker Hub, which I think you get maybe one private, and then the rest have to be public if it's a free account.
I think so. I just logged
Or you
in
can
there
use
the other day.
Azure Container Registry as well. There's a number of spots you can push it out, but then you can push it out there. And then once you have a container, you've got multiple places that you can run that. Containers are they're good for cross cloud. Everybody has a container option. And in Azure, there's at least 5 spots you can push a container. I can think of off the top of my head. So,
Easily, yeah.
right? So you've got your options on where you want to push it out depending on what you're trying to do, either an app service or into Service Fabric, or you can build a VM, or you can run it in Azure Container Registry or Azure Kubernetes Search. Yes, I got all 5.
Well,
I was just saying
ACS,
there was
but
5
ACS
that I
is.
was
Oh, at
thinking
least,
of.
yeah.
But
I said at
container-
least.
Container instances is the other one, right?
There was ACS, but
Yeah.
I think
So that
ACS
first
has
thing-
been. I think the announcement was made about ACS, right? About Azure Container Service. I
Yeah.
think I saw the announcement that was like, "Hey, This is going, I forget when, this year.
A couple
something.
years now.
No,
Couple years.
2020.
Okay,
It's,
I'm sure
it
it's
might
far
be
away.
January of 2020, but it is 2020.
Because
Yeah.
Kubernetes
It's at least
service is
1 year.
where we
Sorry?
need to go. Like Azure Kubernetes service is where we need to go, right? It's
Right.
where the industry's gone. It's like total standard. Everybody's Kubernetes. In fact, people are building on top of Kubernetes now. I was learning about this project called Istio that builds on top of Kubernetes, and it's interesting. Like it adds even more on top of it of saying things like, well, okay, Kubernetes is great, but how do you manage things like I want this container to go out and 10% of the traffic to hit it, and I guess that's another layer on top. And I'm not going to pretend to be an expert. I'm new to Docker and Kubernetes, new as in like this month.
No, I'm not an expert either. I know there's a couple ways to do that. I don't think it's built in inherently to certain ways when you push it out, but in other ways you could. So like if you send it to like an app service plan, then you get all of those things in Azure that help you do that routing now.
Right.
Like that is an availability way. I just don't know if it was something that was missing from Mesos or whatever that would do that. I don't know how much about the tools of the way that they are now. So I could see where another project would build on top of it to get you something that's missing, and we'll just see when that filters down into some of the main options, either in AKS or I think what else would I push it in? Yeah, probably that or app service plan would probably be the first two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
So Bill put out a call for suggest the future meetings and labs. I mean, we're scheduled out through I think at least June on monthly meetings, but the labs maybe even farther, and then labs. But the labs go to May because I think there's 2 more months of Azure DevOps, and then back to ASP.NET Core. But only I want to say it might only be listed for 2 months, which I think is like wow.
Yeah, because the June we got TBD is when we start doing TBD stuff.
Yeah.
I tell you what my suggestion is: Azure Monitor.
Azure monitoring,
security.
Well, because I say Azure Monitor because, so for those who may not have seen the announcement, Azure Monitor, the thing, is now an umbrella for App Insights, the logs, and a few other things all rolled together. I think it includes SCM, so it does like your SCOM, it does your hybrid setups. So this can monitor your VMs, it can monitor on-prem, it can monitor in Azure, it can monitor your sites. Use App Insights, it does the logs. It's one nice centralized area to monitor across your entire org, and not just in Azure. It can monitor on-prem as well.
And going back to what you guys were just talking about, you can monitor your container environments inside of there as well. So that's a preview thing they're starting to put in place. So it's the one-stop shop for doing your monitoring, and it's built into the platform, which is the other cool thing. You don't have to do it as an add-on. Things start to light up in there by default by having logs.
It's really easy to turn on. I mean, you do file new .NET project, it comes up in Visual Studio. Again, you don't have to, but one of the easier ways to do it is to do that, and then just, there's an option to say right-click, add App Insights, and it takes you to a screen, click the button to add, and then it does the part where it calls up into Azure and says, hey, where do you want to put this? And because there's basically 2 parts. There's the part where it puts the NuGet packages in your code, and then there's the part that it associates it to in Azure so that you can send stuff up. And actually, so interesting note, you can actually use App Insights on-prem in your Visual Studio without hooking in to Azure. So you don't even need a direct connect to use some of it.
Okay.
You can go, there's a manual install of the SDK, and it'll go get the NuGet packages, and you will be able to use App Insights search locally without even connecting to Azure. It'll just keep everything on-prem.
Yeah.
But you can at least leverage that before you even do anything else, if you for some reason can't.
Would these be like for apps in your data center? You could set that up, or are you just, when you said locally, developer local?
Developer local.
Okay,
like you don't even need a connection. You can just install the bits to just use App Insights search, which is a feature component of Visual Studio.
Okay.
Without even hooking it into Azure. Now, I would say if you can, just hook it in right away and just mark it -dev or something, because what's really nice is while you're debugging locally, it still will, you can then send it up into Azure and it'll have it in 2 spots. So you'll have a collection in Azure of all your debug stuff as well, and you'll have it locally, and then you get into this nice longer term thing, because once it's going into App Insights, there's a retention policy on there, but you can actually have that auto config to ship into like blob storage, I believe, to keep it longer term. So not only for production, but say you're doing stuff in dev, and for some reason you want to keep this longer term to go back on, or just to play around with and have to understand it more. So then you can set it up so that way even when you're just playing around in your Visual Studio on your local machine or in whatever VM you're running, it can then also still push up into Azure, and you can leverage all the App Insights tooling that's up there in Azure, not just what you get out of the IDE on-prem.
So let's say you get monitoring going. The next step is like, what do you do with it? So what you got me thinking about was, as a development team, you know, what if you start thinking about, okay, it's one thing to say, hey, this is awesome, we're going to get this great monitoring and logs and stuff, but the email is still going to come to the development team that says, this showed up in the logs, what is it? So how do you, are the tools available to you to even dress rehearse this stuff? Like, what if at development time I say, okay, I want to start seeing how our app reacts to certain scenarios. What is it going to look like? And then we could even start planning today. What's this going to do for it? Come back to Visual Studio. If I had an app using App Insights and I had the problem I had today with that, what it really was a bad connection string.
Right.
Okay. Now I'm now, so here comes the call from somebody. I don't know if it's project manager. I'm not sure if it's the data center folks because we're in Azure, but maybe you aren't in Azure. It doesn't matter. Like, what do I do?
There's a lot of different places you can go to debug your app in production, or if you figure out you can repro this in QA, or you have it somewhere else. There's a number of options. You can, I wouldn't do this in production, but you can live debug. You can attach in the cloud. I don't do that in production, but you can. You can do snapshot debugging. Again, I wouldn't do it in production, but you theoretically could. That would be something you could do in QA. Snapshot debugging is like being able to attach, but without it stopping it all. You set like a breakpoint, or let's call it something else, where it hits it and it gives you like basically a dump of everything at that point, and you set a couple of those, and you can have a couple of your own stuff, and basically you walk it through in QA, and it hits each of those snap points, and you get it in Visual Studio. So you basically say in Visual Studio, go connect up there, do snapshot debugging, and give me that info, and then you get a lot of good info in order to actually learn what's going on in where it's running versus trying to guess. You can also just go into the logs, so there's so many spots where you can get different logs, although Azure Monitor puts a lot of them together. But as we were discussing, you can look at Kudu, you can look at the Azure logs specifically, you can look at App Insights to try to take together. Now, App Insights is really nice because you can follow that process all the way through. You can say, okay, I see the logs being generated, I see the errors being generated, I can click on the error. There's like, Microsoft has some machine learning in there where it'll suggest, because like if you're generating one error, you can figure out which error you should be focusing on. But if you're generating 100 or 200 or 1,000 errors, and, you know, not all of them are errors. Some of them are errors and some of them are, you know, errors, right? But you want to know, well, what's the real error? What do I really want to target? There's some machine learning that goes on that suggests which one. Hey, you might want to click on this one.
Right.
And then you can go down that rabbit hole, and that will take you, especially if you have all your stuff in Azure DevOps, it'll take you down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, where is this and where is this? And no, it's this line of code and it's this thing here. And you don't have to be in Azure DevOps for this, but like, it can tell you, especially if it's .NET code, what line, what file, what function, where were you, what's going on, where did you get this? You can see the stack trace. You can click the button that says, you know, just show me my code. So you eliminate, you know, a lot of the stack trace that just is boilerplate stack trace. You just parts of the code that you care about, and you can dive all the way in and figure out what's going on. That's if you're getting it in the logs in a way that you kind of expect it. But like I said, there's multiple places you can go to get live output. So if you're continually generating this error under certain conditions that's reproducible, you can get that live output from the logs as well. And then lastly, they also brought together a lot of the logs that are going into this nice searchable, I can't remember what it's called. It's like a log center where there's like a special query language just for that.
Kusto, right?
Kusto, that's what it's called. And that's a special query language for going through all the logs in Azure. And that will allow you, if you have like an ID, a correlation ID or something, or it'll say, oh, give me all the times that I saw this 401 error in the last day or the last month. And what's really cool about it, because it is a special language and you have to learn it. There's a Pluralsight course on there.
Oh, yeah.
On the other day. But you can also tell it in your query what kind of chart you want it to generate. And so not only will you query it, but it'll give you all the stuff in the table, but it'll also generate, because like what would you do? Well, I'd probably take it and paste it into Excel and I'd generate a chart. This will generate the chart for you right there in the thing. And you can mouse over it and see where, oh, there was a spike of errors on this day because I did a query for the last year and I charted it by this, and ta-da, now I have instant insight into what's been going on.
So we got to figure out how to show this. And here's the other hurdle that I see
I have a session on it.
Is I don't want developers to just see it. I want them to envision them actually being able to take it to work. Because I think a lot of times, and I'm not criticizing Azure or anything, because I think it happens with a lot of the technologies we show, is you come to this session, you see it, you go, wow, that's really cool, but we're not using that. Like, I don't know how many times I've heard somebody say, that was really great, we're not using that, but that was really cool, and I appreciate it. And that, of course, it's great to know that the people in the audience just were happy to learn something. Like, that's cool. There's a lot of great value in that. But it's like, man, I want you to go and do this now. I want you to go up your game, monitor.
I think one of the better ways to approach that is to do the hands-on labs and have it be demoable to show the people at your work, right? It's not enough to just explain to someone the value that's there. If you can show them what you did and how easy it is, and two, it has to be a value proposition, right? What are we getting? Are we getting more for the same? Are we getting cost savings? Are we getting better feedback from prod faster? What is the benefit to the business? Why would we do this? Why would they commit any developer time or money to you using this, right? So when you go to explain it, have a nice demo, which you can easily do. You can get up and running for Azure for nearly nothing, if not nothing, but also be able to show it off and explain the value to the business, right? What is the long term to your group? Why it's not enough to just say, yeah, we should use Azure DevOps, we should get pipelines. Great, but where's the value?
Yeah.
What am I spending my money on now in order to do something later that is either going to make us better, faster, more cost effective, whatever it might be, right? So be able to have that conversation. I know that's not an easy conversation for developers. Developers normally, I want to generalize, but normally they focus a lot on the technology. We don't always focus on the business stuff, and that's something that in my career it has taken a while to get to the point where I can go, okay, it's not enough that I understand the new technology and I can explain that it's cool and I can explain what it does. I have to understand the value to the business proposition. Why would we do it,
right,
as opposed to the status quo, right? There has to be an advantage, a long-term cost savings, or an efficiency gain, or a feature gain. So a lot of the new stuff that's coming out, maybe you're not going to use it to revolutionize what you already have. Maybe you're going to use it to do greenfield work because you want to beat your competitors to market, and Azure or a cloud allows you to do that faster than anything else, right? Than trying to do it on-prem or trying to roll it yourself. There's your value proposition. And then you get to talk about all the cool technology or why we should do this in containers or whatever it might be. But because the value proposition is we should do it in Azure, we should do it this way, and we will get there this much faster than we would have if we tried to roll our own, essentially.
Yeah, and you're solving business problems, as you mentioned. That's the crux of it, right? The business person is not going to care about technology A, B, or C. They want to know that I've got this issue. How are you going to help me get there so that I'm ahead of my competitors in a way that is beneficial, whether it's efficiencies or cost savings or what have you. So
right, I've got this idea. I want to get to market faster than our competitors because that's where the money's going to be made up front. If we can be first to market with it, we want to be fast and we want to be secure, right? You can always make that case with Azure. That's one of the easiest cases to make. Why it's secure. Just go to there's a security center, and there's a whole ton of information on all the certifications and
Trust
why
Center.
it's secure. The Trust Center, that's what it's called. Thank you. And go through that, and you'll be able to get your trusted architectures. It's not just enough to say, oh, it's this certification compliant, because there's 1,000 certifications that Azure has.
Right.
But you need to make sure that what you do is also secure and compliant, and they have representative architectures for that too. There's a good one in a presentation I did where Microsoft released a white paper that basically did an Azure architecture pattern. It's like an evolution. It's like, okay, you start out with just a mobile app and an API and a SQL Server. And now we want to make it a little more secure, so we put a VNet around it, and we whitelisted it between this and the SQL Server. And then we added a second VNet, and we used the gatekeeper pattern, and we used Azure, and it just built on itself until it got to the very end when they went, and this is what Microsoft recommends you do when you have highly confidential data. This is an example architecture for how you should be deploying it to production and how you should be securing it, and this is what we recommend, right? So like, that's the kind of stuff you need to dive into as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when we talk to customers here, those are the conversations we're starting to get into now, or have over the last half dozen months or so, where it's not been lift and shift. We've got these applications that are there. It's how do we think about everything differently and start to build them out. Maybe we do lift and shift to start with, but then we start to tease that application apart and start to put those things around it that are more cloud minded when you architect your application. And that's now, instead of having that lift and shift discussion to start, we're actually starting to get to that application discussion and saying, all right, we're here. How do we get there? And we don't want to lift and shift. Tell us how we re-architect. How do we move those things?
Right. How do we do this cloud native and securely, or how do we do this mostly cloud native, but we've got a couple of hybrid things we need that we can't move there.
Yep.
So how do we hook into those securely, right? And we start talking hybrid connections or using a service bus as a median for that kind of data transfer, or whatever it might be.
Sure.
Take your cloud pattern of choice of how you want to get data back and forth.
You might have multiple ones in your app, right? Because you've got different concerns for different parts of the data as you go ahead and roll them through. For I've got this bit of data where it's got to stay here, but I need to access it quickly. Whereas these other things can go off parallel behind the scenes. So very different ways of having those of working those patterns and having those conversations. So.
Cool. And advice to everybody that's watching: you can all get started on this. This is there are tons of resources out there to do this. The Azure Doc themselves are great. There's an entire architecture pattern section that you should just roll through and just know them, because
that's that cloud patterns part of
it. Just go to your favorite search engine and type in Azure Cloud Patterns, and you'll bring you to the page, and we're talking gatekeeper pattern or cache aside pattern, valet key pattern, whatever it might be, right? Know those. Those are your cloud native patterns that you are going to end up needing to know and understand in order to build them into your cloud solutions.
Right?
You can start simple, just like the example I walked through earlier. Start with what you know. I know there's a mobile app. I know there's an API. I know there's a backend database. Where do I go from here? How do I make that more secure? What patterns do I need to include to make this meet our guidance, our production needs, and our security, right?
Definitely. And just to kind of carry that out from the navigation perspective, so there's a shortened URL to get to the Azure Docs, aka.ms/Azure Docs. Going there, that's that front area where all of the information is available to you. So think about getting places where you can want to go and get started, whether you're looking to do developing apps or securing your resources, but then actually things about going down into the products themselves and getting documentation there. But as Tim mentioned, around the architecture and being able to get out to the actual architecture section itself, reference architectures that are available, so you can actually go out. Let's go take a look here and see where that lands us.
So that's cool.
So whether you're looking to do something from an AI perspective, or you're looking at big data, or you need to have an application that does hybrid networks, all of those are here as a starter point for you to get up and running and get your applications up and built and architected in a way that is cloud friendly and meets the oftentimes security requirements that you're looking for to put in your application, and all of the high availability and disaster recovery components. There are architectures that can support all of those.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. And if you're a developer looking to become an architect, or if you're an architect who's really focused, on-prem for a while, or maybe just in core.NET but not in Azure specific, that's where you want to start. That's where you want to learn. I think everybody, before you get into it, that's the fear of the unknown. I don't know what I don't know. How do I get to Azure? Who can we ask? So one, obviously Microsoft can help you, but two, you can help yourself. You can go, learn those patterns and do it yourself in Azure and click around, and it takes time and energy and a year or two of your life to get to the point where you're comfortable with it and you understand enough of the basics that you're confident and you can say this is what I need to do, or you know where to go look it up, right? No one's an expert in all of Azure, but if you do need to know something specific about CDN or Service Bus, I know, okay, I can go here in the docs. I can drill down, I understand what it's saying, I understand the underlying mechanisms of Azure, and now I can go learn the thing that I need to learn in order to make this decision.
Yep.
Should I use CDN or not, or which of the 4 CDN options should I have chosen? Which features do I need under the hood? Things like that.
When you had that page up,
Yeah.
there was a section of language logos. I'm just curious what's on there. Because obviously, from a VM standpoint, who cares?
Right.
You know, if you're going with VMs, you can do whatever you want. But when it comes to platform as a service, I saw .NET.
Is that this one here?
Yeah, but it was a little further down.
All right.
Oh, maybe it wasn't.
Maybe it wasn't this
Maybe
one?
it was back.
So I go back.
It was at the landing.
Oh, okay. This one, develop apps.
Just curious what's here. That's all.
Yep.
.NET,
So .NET, Python, Java,
PHP, Node.
Node, and Go.
Python. Yeah.
There's more. It depends on the PaaS offering,
Yeah.
which languages are supported.
Right. From a PaaS standpoint, like Azure Functions supported, I think there's .NET, C#, F#. There's some JavaScript,
There's
Node,
Node.js.
Python.
Python now.
Python now, and I
Is
think
it
I wonder
preview?
if
it's
Go.
preview still. Yeah.
Python.
I haven't seen Go
Actually, I
yet.
thought Python went.
It
I
could
thought
have
that
gone
was a
GA.
Connect announcement. Maybe.
Maybe.
Sure.
Consult your favorite search engine.
Sure.
And you'll know whether or not it. But hey, good opportunity. Go to the Azure blog and click on that option that you want to know about, be it functions, and it will list all the recent announcements.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you whether or not it's in. Also, if you just go to the main Azure website and click on functions, and it'll tell you. When you scroll down into languages, it'll tell you which one is in preview or GA.
Yeah.
But I like the Azure blog. That's my personal favorite. I always go to the Azure blog, not just because on every Monday. Shout out to Rob Karen, who writes the Azure.source, formerly with Last Week in Azure was what it used to be called, which is that name should tell you everything you need to know about it. He basically collates a whole bunch of different Azure things that were announced over the past week, and every Monday he releases them in a nice blog. But that website has a massive filtering mechanism where you can filter for just those or just by each Azure feature specific. It's scroll down on the right hand side, I think. Yep. And those are all your topics. And so if you want to know something about, Azure Functions, click on the function or the keyword for it, and it'll tell you all the recent what's in preview, what went GA or whatever it might be.
So experimenting with this stuff, right? You can't just read about it.
Right.
And I know there's plans. Like you can put in an email address or a Microsoft account and you get, I think, 200 in credit or something like that.
30 days worth of credit. Yeah.
And a lot of us maybe have credits from other reasons. Maybe your employer gives you a Visual Studio subscription or something like that. But I've always thought a lot about the problem of the developer who's, I'd like to try this stuff, but I'm afraid of leaving the spigot running.
Right.
And so for the longest time, I've complained that there isn't, I don't want to call it pay as you go because that actually means something in Azure. It means,
right. I mean,
it means we've got it metered.
Yeah.
What I mean more of is, like, I want to be able to deposit $10 into my Azure account, and when it's gone, it's gone. And I've complained about that to Microsoft a lot, but I recently stumbled on something that I think is called, I'm going to forget, we're probably going to end up searching for it. I think it's called Azure Open Billing. And I think what it allows is it allows third parties to set up billing structures. So you could theoretically go into business saying, okay, almost kind of like a volume license reseller in that old world of buying, Office and things like that. I think what it allows is you could go into business saying, well, I'm going to be an Azure Open Billing partner, and then I basically sell, $1,000 of credits to you. So now you're getting exactly what I'm saying, except on a business scale, $1,000, $100, $200, whatever. It would be interesting if there was somebody out there that we could do it for $5, and I just don't know. I started looking into that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't think that it's not supported. I just don't think it's supported through Microsoft. I think somebody would go into business as one of these partners. I probably got the name wrong. I think that's what it's called. But I found that very interesting.
Would be. It's not ringing a bell with me, and I did
Yeah.
a quick searching as Azure Billing, and nothing that kind of matched came up.
I gotta have to look into it. Maybe
yeah.
another show.
There you go.
But I thought it was an interesting idea. I definitely found some resellers that were like, hey, get $1,000 of Azure here, and I was like, I don't want 1,000.
Yeah.
I want $4 because I'm gonna go to a lab tonight, and I don't want to spend any. And they told me it's only gonna cost me $1, so I'll go ahead and put in 5.
Right, just
I go home and I'm stupid and I just make a mistake and I leave it running. Well, it cost me $5, no big deal. Just I've wondered about that for a long time.
Yeah, and the use case is a little different, right? That's not something you would do from a developer perspective.
It's individual.
I'm sorry, it's not something you do from a company perspective. It's something you do from an individual perspective.
Yeah, because developers, I think, are still terrified of well, I want to learn this stuff, but I don't want to mess up.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want it to be a colossal costing mess up.
Right.
You'd like some guardrails for what you're trying to do. And I think, although that also brings it back to the Azure Hands-On Lab, which you don't need an Azure account. It will set up that account behind the.
That's the Learn stuff, Microsoft Learn or Azure Hands-On Lab.
No, it's the Hands-On Lab. They just redid that the Hands-On Lab website. It sets up. I think they call it concierge account.
Yeah,
where you don't actually need an Azure account at all. You can go there and do the hands-on labs with no Azure account.
Yep, that's true.
It will create the account for you in the background and time box it. It's like this is good for 1 hour. It looks like Azure. You click around, you do the lab, and then at the end, after an hour, it times out and it goes away, and you didn't have to do anything. You didn't put in any money, and you learned Azure like it's Azure.
Yep. And I think some of the Microsoft Learn labs do this too. The same thing. Provision resources. Well, there it is. Provisions resources. Because I went through one of them, and it provisioned SQL database, and it provisioned something else. And then I guess when it was over, it just went away. So
So I mean, here you go. We got introduction to Azure, 6 modules that you can go ahead and kick off, start for free, and be able to get comfortable with how you would. What are we doing here? Looks like we're introduction Azure. We're creating simple virtual machine, add a web server, scale it up. The core stuff you would need to kind of do to get started. So
absolutely, that's the new. Hands-On Labs and the new the Microsoft Learn site, I think both launched near the end of the fall, and that's kind of where they're sending everybody, and it's great, again, because it fixes all of those fears.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this when the Philly Azure meetup group did a Hands-On Lab this fall, and Rob mentioned this as well as a good option.
Yeah.
I know we've brought it up a couple of times.
So since you brought it up, crossing over the streams here to the Philly Azure side, are we thinking of bringing up the labs again there, or is it?
Yeah, it's definitely being discussed. We think it went well. I think we learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
From that lab night, and I think I learned a good amount from going to the Philly.net Hands-On Labs night, and we've got kind of this couple different things that we can look into to improve it. But from the Philly Azure perspective, we're definitely looking into that sometime this spring. So. For those of you still on the stream, our January meeting is January 15th, and our first speaker will be someone from Chef, and then the second speaker will be Brian Manisi, who's a Microsoft MVP, and he's going to be talking Azure DevOps, which is perfect because we just spent tonight doing DevOps stuff. Brian's going to do DevOps, and then I think actually the next night, back with Philly.net, it is the 16th. That's an Agile night, but if you look through the detailed description, there's some DevOps stuff in there as well. Okay. So it's definitely a combination of Agile and DevOps, and that it's been such a big thing since even before it was announced and renamed as Azure DevOps in general, as well as all the things involved in that. And we have obviously a big commitment from Philly.net to keep going over that for the next few months, and we'll see what Philly Azure comes up with. I'm trying to remember. I think for February it's going to be 2 cognitive services related sessions and dev focused. Don't quote me on that. We haven't finalized that yet. It's not up.
Oh, it's not up?
It's right here.
In here.
So what's Chef anyways? Do you know? I don't know. I mean, I only kind of know what Chef is. I hear it costs the same vein as Chef, Vagrant. I don't know if they're related, but I usually hear people talking about.
I mean, if it's so classically, and it's been referred to like infrastructure as code, right? The desired state configuration of your environment. Basically, that's what Chef's done a lot of. Now, recently we had them in here. They gave a partner session, I think it was back in November, where they're actually starting to move into more of this app modernization. So taking your applications, that not only doing the configuration of that, but letting you take them and put them in such a way that you can move them into the Azure environment, and then continue to modernize them and make them more cloud friendly architecture-wise. So we have a couple partners who are doing that kind of a scenario in different ways. But Chef is starting to roll that part out as well. So they're expanding a little bit about what they do.
Yeah, they've got a couple different offerings now. I don't know what they're going to talk about for ours.
Yeah, right.
Still haven't gotten the abstract.
And it's okay. We don't always know.
I want to find out what it's going to be. No, because they've got a number of different things, and we know we're also talking Azure DevOps that night as well.
Mhm.
So I want to see. I know that they have an offering for Azure DevOps as well, and it fits into the pipelines and all that stuff. So we'll see what. But they do have those other offerings as well. So we'll see what they're gonna. Once we get the abstract back and we get it posted, we'll see what they're gonna talk about and what we can say. Okay, can you talk about this or this as well, and get that in there. So we'll make sure we have a really good overview session on Chef coming up, because I'm not an expert in Chef either. So
that's fine.
I definitely want to. No, we've had a number.
That's what I want to learn. Yeah,
we've had a number of partners.
We admit here that we're just talking and we don't always know, right? So
nobody's an expert in everything, but I want to learn it. No, but we've had a number of partners in the past year as well come out and do different sessions as well, and we're happy to have that, because I think that not everywhere is going to be just a Microsoft shop, as they call it, right? It's not just going to be straight .NET with just Azure and just that pipeline. Some people are going to have other things involved. You're either going to be doing Terraform or Chef or Puppet or Jenkins or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And we've tried to have some of them out as well, but we're also trying to focus. It's weird because we only meet once a month, and we've talked about meeting twice a month. That's really what it comes down to. Is there's so many good topics in Azure, we want to cover them all, but we try to.
And it changes so quickly. You could go through them all once a month over the course of a year, and you could easily go back.
But you just do it
we
again.
can meet once a week, and it would change by the time we kind of came back around to it.
Yeah.
So it's 2019. So do you have any developer New Year's resolutions? Like, this is what I want to do this year. I don't know if I want it to be learning. But it could be something you want to learn. Or something you want to do. Okay.
I do. I put this out on Twitter. I don't know if either you saw it or not.
I did.
Is that why I brought it up?
No, it's that I probably could think about it too, but I thought it might be a good. I mean, it's a second, so we could always come back and look at this show at the end of the year and see what we didn't do or did do.
So mine, I put this out on Twitter and LinkedIn. So if you follow me, it's Tim W. Farrow on Twitter. But I said. Because I get this, the genesis is I get asked this question a lot in the past couple of years, which is how do you stay on top of Azure? How do you stay on top of technology? Yeah. And honestly, the answer is it takes a lot of time and effort. I am constantly learning. I am learning things, finding stuff on Twitter. I'm finding stuff on LinkedIn. I'm researching things in Azure. I'm watching a video. I'm trying stuff out in my Azure subscription. I'm listening to podcasts constantly. So I ingest a lot of stuff all the time, every day. And I said it's a lot of effort to stay on top of that. So my developer New Year's resolution, I actually said, is I'm going to tweet out and post on LinkedIn probably most of the things that I come across on a given day that I read or listen to or see or hear that I thought were good. Right? I'm not going to post everything, but I'm going to try to have an ongoing stream of consciousness of, oh, I saw this article, I read this article, I thought it was good. Here it is on Twitter. Here it is on LinkedIn, and I have a master list running. I have a gist on my GitHub account, where I'm just going to keep every single link from every article or every podcast that I listen to. I listen to 2 podcasts on the way here, and when I get home, I'm going to post them, so you can follow along with me.
Tim Digest. That's
this
an
is going to be
idea.
Everything that I learned. And this is what I did to stay on top of it, and we'll see if I make it through the whole year or not. But I'm tagging it. It's hashtag Azure Daily.
Oh, nice. Okay.
No one was really, I think I did a search quick on Twitter and I found like 2 tweets from a couple years ago. That was it. So I'm in on that.
I think I could probably do the same thing, except it would be the tabs I opened but didn't get around to reading and then eventually close the browser.
See, this made me read it. So that's the thing.
I hear you. I agree with you.
I email myself a million articles. I only ever get through like a quarter of them. But I had some in my inbox today and I'm like, you know what? click. I'm gonna read those 3 and I'm gonna post them.
Yeah, I mean, I get frustrated about it because I will see it and I'll go, oh, that looks great, and I'll click it and I'll open it and it's sitting there in the tab, and then
something else comes along,
and I leave that browser open for days and days and days, and I go, oh, I have 40 tabs open now. I'm just gonna declare browser bankruptcy and start over.
Because you're using 800 gigs of RAM at that point.
Yes, right. My system needs to be rebooted, right? With Visual Studio, won't do anything. Not forget Visual Studio. Minesweeper won't start.
Right.
So
I do. I at the end of every day, I close all my tabs.
Oh, good for you.
One of those.
Good for you. I can't.
That's how I am about it. But if I have good stuff, I actually will just. I will. You can do this. I don't know if you can do this in Firefox. You can right click and bookmark all open tabs. And it puts it in a folder, and I go, I'll read that later.
I got turned on to an extension called OneTab, which you can get for Firefox or Chrome. And I got it from John Galloway, because for the ASP.NET community stand-up, they talk about a ton of stuff. Like, and what he does is he already has things he wants to share, but then just as they talk, new things come up. And I've actually done this on a couple occasions too, when I'm not speaking at Philly.net, is if I'm really on the ball and I'm moderating the stream, I will be just creating. You've seen me do it before. I've done it for Philly Azure too. And I've created I'm just letting the browser go thing after thing after thing, and then when I'm done, you hit a button, this OneTab extension button, and it just sucks it all up into a link that you can share, and goes, hey, here's everything.
Nice.
And I've used that. I've used it for Philly Azure. I've used it for Philly.net. I've been doing it less, only because when it's a night where I'm actually going to be up there, then I don't moderate as much, and it's kind of a bummer, because I think it's nice to have that at the end of the stream to say, hey, whether you were watching on stream or now you're watching it on YouTube, this link takes you to everything we talked about. And there's been a couple times that I don't get to do it much anymore, but there were a couple times where on a Saturday I would sit and watch and be part of all of Jeff Fritz's stream, the whole 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I just anything that came up, I'd just be like, click, let me go search for it a little bit, get a couple relevant tabs, keep them up there. And then when it was done, I would just say, at the end of the stream, I go, hey, Jeff, here's a OneTab list. And he'd usually put it in the show notes, because it's great. It's an awesome resource. But, you got to sit there and do it, right? So, but yeah, I think that's a great idea, to share what you've learned every day, because it's so disposable. I read it and I go, okay, that was cool. Off it goes, right?
Definitely.
Right, and it's a nice running list. I figured out after the fact, I was like, oh, it's a good running list for me, because
I should be saving this.
I should be saving, because right now it's always just a whole bunch of links in my email account. That's all, and I always have to go back into my email and search for that and go, oh, I was looking for that thing that I bookmarked a while ago, but now I can go, okay. So, but also, like I said, it forced me to go read them right away, instead of just doing the same thing, which is email yourself, and you may not ever get back to it, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time, unfortunately, and I can't. I shudder to think of how much I didn't read, but maybe, there's only so much time.
Right.
Yeah, I've got a few thousand unread messages. I'm sure 1,000 of them are just, hey Tim, you should read this later. Emails to myself.
Right.
Yeah. So I think, let's see, if I was to think of a list, it would probably start with, so tomorrow I'm going to be able to set my studio back up. And when I say studio, it doesn't sound big. What it really means is I can hang a green thing here, so that I can make it look like I'm in the place that's not
those watching,
my room.
This is actually green.
Yeah, we're not really here in front of this desk, of course.
Should we break the wall and show the illusion?
Oh, it doesn't matter. You have a lot of other great tricks. Like if we were showing code, you can put us in the corner. I think all that stuff is really cool.
Code cam. Hang on.
Which I think, I love that. That is great. I can't wait. In fact, so one of the things we actually have to resolve to do is figure out how, I think the talk show is good, but maybe show a few things too now and then, figure that part of it out. But so that's going back up tomorrow, and I definitely want to stream more. Yeah, well.
What was that?
Tim's saying like a podcast, right?
Oh yeah.
So
we used to podcast. We should podcast.
We used to have the Static Void podcast, but I definitely want to start creating more content, and I think there's audio content is really good, because your use case, it was mine too, is something I can listen to while I'm traveling. It could be, or heck, just something I'm listening to when I'm getting ready in the morning.
And when I work out at the gym.
Yeah.
Always listening to it.
So, and that has to be audio. The video doesn't work as well there. But at the same time, to start streaming what I'm working on, and part of what I'm thinking is what my easy way to start is we're using some pre-made labs this time, but we make a lot of our own labs too for Philly.net Hands-On Labs, or Code Camp is coming up, and guess what? I'm going to start working on a talk or two. So I was just thinking, I'm just going to turn that on, and in that process of me building the slides, thinking about the content, creating the samples, and even if people show up or don't, it goes to YouTube.
Yeah.
And if there are little gems in there, now this is the post-production part that takes time. You can just throw it up unedited. That's cool, and it's even valuable. But what's great is if you can carve out the 8 minutes of, hey, this was almost a semi-presentation in itself, of 8 to 10 minutes of doing something, grab that. That's a good YouTube video.
Yeah.
Because I really think consuming content, people are looking, you even see it happening on Pluralsight and LinkedIn Learning and stuff like that, is the courses are getting smaller. You know, there used to be the 10-hour epics.
Yeah, I know.
WCF end to end with
by the way,
Miguel
is still
Castro,
awesome.
which is still one of the
Right.
Like
greatest.
when I need to learn something,
Right.
I'm looking for the 5 to 10 hour
Right.
option. I'm like, give me it all.
But there's more and more of the ones
Yeah.
that, and I think this is even, it's not just actively on their part, as they know the quick consumption. Like, I also want, what can I learn in 45 minutes? What can I learn in 2
No, I
hours?
agree, because it's different things, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't know anything about Angular.
Yeah.
I need the 10-hour 0 to decent course. Or something like I needed the other day where it's like, I need to get better at this thing in Azure. I don't need 10 hours. Give me the 30 minutes to an hour and a half of 0 to okay, and I've learned it. I've picked it up. I've tested it out in my environment. I grok it.
Yeah.
And now I move on, and then I can decide, do I need the advanced level of the same course? Do I need to poke around more? Or am I good? Did I learn enough and I can move on to something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's definitely, after, I think sometime tomorrow night, I can actually get started on that. And I've been saying this for a week now, is, I should be able to set it up tonight. I should be able to set it up tonight. But,
It's funny because it's one of the things over the last week, with everybody being away for the holidays and New Year's and all that, it just seemed that there were a lot more new streamers all of a sudden online.
Oh,
And
yeah.
It's like, hey, I want to kind of show up, or not show up, but just, hey, let's just turn on the cameras and see what it is.
Yep.
I think that is huge in of itself, and being able to get past whatever that
oh, yeah.
that thing that holds
Well,
you back from
especially being a
doing it.
longtime presenter, you feel compelled to be ready,
Right.
and that's not what it is.
No. And much like you, I'm thinking similar things. We do a lot here in that, I've got a presentation that I'm doing next week around the bots and the bot framework, right? I got to do some prep and some practice on what that looks like. Why not just turn the stream on and at least say, hey, you may not have done bot work before. This is kind of how that all works.
Right.
Those kind of sessions for us happen at least once a week.
Right.
So I think that is something, it's just getting past that initial, I'll hit the go live
Yeah.
button.
Or the other thing is go give a presentation that you gave at Code Camp. Do it again on stream, because now you've recorded it in a way. I mean, I know we're doing more recording here, but in some scenarios, there's just too many rooms. And again, this is done. We're very fortunate to have the camera up in the NPRs, and we're fortunate to have the camera here, but we're not going to be everywhere.
No,
It's just not.
as much as we try.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So, give a presentation again on stream, and then if you like how it worked out, that goes to YouTube, and boom, you've got a talk on YouTube, right?
Right. You don't like it, delete it quick, and you're done. No,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Right.
Either way, or pull it back down and master it. I mean, it also depends on you're not going to go from 0 to
Yeah.
master streamer /
You have to
post-production expert,
You
right?
have to
But if
learn
you
how to
want to
do it.
learn,
Yeah.
you can learn on yourself, and we are all in a time where this is now a thing, where you can
Yeah.
do this with minimal, effort, and you can just look it up and train on yourself and do it.
Pretty much an internet connection and some free software, and you're off and running.
Exactly, and that hasn't always been the case. The barrier to entry has been lowered
Yeah.
to almost 0 when it comes to what you want to try to do or accomplish or get out there. But getting back to the podcasting, I also have seen a couple new ones pop up already, and I know that there's a couple in the works that haven't been released yet. That should be good this year as well, and I'll promote them as soon as I see them come out. I don't want to say anything now in case it doesn't actually come out.
I'm with you.
But the person tweeted about it, so
Oh, did they?
They're putting it
Alright.
out there that they're going to do a new one.
That's always the first thing, right?
So I'm
You
like,
gotta-
Step 1, tweet that you're going to start a podcast.
Right.
Step 2, maybe actually.
Yeah,
podcast.
record one. Step 3, actually publish it.
No, but this person is very smart, and they already have a podcast, so they wanted to do a different new one, and
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that
Oh, cool.
as well. But I'm also mentioning it in case that was something that we wanted to bring up here as well. I mean, obviously we have the video and audio here. We could just do audio here. There's different options here.
And I know we've talked about doing something. I'll put it out there that
Yep.
we've talked about doing while we do this as a Wednesday after show from
Mhm.
Philly.net. We'd love to do this as an as a weekly. You know, maybe we don't do it in the full production here like this. Maybe it's just a Skype session and we capture it that way. But at least do something every Wednesday evening, because that seems to be a consistent time that we all are able to get around the mics and at least talk. So.
Yeah.
Well, and twice a month. I'm trying to be here more often.
Yeah,
I
but I
hope
mean,
to-
even outside of here, so have a way to kind of bring us all together.
Right.
on the
'Cause we
2
can Skype
Wednesdays when we're
multiple.
not here.
Yep.
You're saying, yeah.
We
No, because-
experimented with that where you could still be at home and still take advantage of the green screen and
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't have a green screen. I need to get one
So,
of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
I gotta
doesn't
get
matter.
one
You
for
can
home.
put people in a window. It works.
No,
fine.
my computer, the back behind me, it's my office is also a laundry room.
Oh.
Oh.
That's the
So-
same reason why I have the green screen behind me, to
I
be
need-
honest with
no,
you,
that's
because
what
it's a
I'm saying, I
mess
need that.
behind me. If I ever clean it up, then I might just say, well, I don't need that anymore.
Don't get me wrong, I love it. The whole reason was I put my office on the second floor of the house with all the other bedrooms, but we also knew how awesome it. If you've never had the laundry on the same floor as all the other bedrooms, let me tell you, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I was like, I'll sacrifice. I will split my office with laundry and a couch and another desk. I don't
Nice.
care. I'm not putting my office in the basement again. It's so cold down there.
Yeah.
But I'm not
Cold
putting the
and out of
laundry
way
in the basement. That's 2 flights of stairs. So.
Right. That makes sense.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so
well, I
need
mean,
a
I
green
didn't really
screen.
give a developer technology one, but
Anyway.
I think the other one thing I'm thinking about is some of those languages we just looked at in Azure is trying to build something with something like either Python or Go or even F#, and even like different paradigms. You know, instead of thinking object oriented, maybe like try to build something in F# and say like, hey, I'm going to really try to embrace the functional paradigm. I've failed at that one for a couple years now. But so I might as well put it back. It's like losing weight, right? I'll put it back up at the top, and we'll see what happens in 2019.
Yeah. I know Python is on my short list to do
Yeah.
this year, just because. Yes, you can build websites and you can do those things with it, but it's so prevalent in the AI space.
The
as
language
well.
of machine learning, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, it's containers. I'm
Okay.
okay, but I'm trying to be really good. And so for me, it's been a lot of just, because it's a number of different parts, right? So, the Docker part and Kubernetes part, and this part, it's the Azure part. I'm slowly putting it all together and start to get.
That always makes it challenging when you go to do a talk. It's like, well, where are you? Do you know containers at least, or do you
Yeah.
have to really
how
start
do
at
how
the...
do you learn all of
Yeah.
that and put it together?
I just started on the Docker part this week, like where I went, okay, new project. It happens to be ASP.NET Core, and then on purpose, I'm kind of like, okay, I published it. Now can I build the Docker image? I mean, I know the samples are out there that they're just like, here, just GitHub this and it's done. And I go, well, I kind of want to see how it works. So I got there
Did you
this
do
week.
It's the Scott Allen course.
No,
on
I just
Pluralsight?
sort of kind of just
Okay.
figured it out.
If you have Pluralsight, which
Yeah.
I kind of assume you do,
He has a good.
there's a Scott Allen course getting up and running with containers, and I don't remember which one it is. I can tell you the link, but it was basically the walkthrough was, here's how you get it up and running in Visual Studio. Here's how you do .NET
cool.
Core.
Yeah,
Here's how you
nice.
incorporate it into a Linux container.
Nice.
Here's how you build that container. Here's how you push that out to a Docker Hub. Here's how you wire that up into an Azure App Service. Check the box for CI/CD. Then you make your change to your container. You push that out to your thing. It picks it up. It pushes it out to prod. You've got staging slot. You've got prod slot. You do the SWA. I mean, it was an end-to-end course on
Getting all the bells and whistles along the way.
Getting good if you're, a .NET, you want to do .NET Core on a Linux container and do Docker and push it out into an app service and take advantage of that. I mean, it was a well done course. I did that a while ago, and that's what got me thinking about all of this. Was I did that in the fall, and actually I ran into some issues with it, and I called up. They got it fixed. What happened was when we published I'm total aside, they published a course and one of the videos didn't publish right, and it was the older version.
Oh,
But
okay.
so I ran into a small issue, and I emailed Scott about it, and he actually had it fixed by the next day.
Oh, nice.
But in the interim, I threw it out there on Twitter, and I was like, "Hey, I ran into this problem. Who's an expert in this who can help me?" And Jason Van Brackle
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
answered the
Yeah,
call.
Jason's great.
He said, "Hey, let's talk." I called him up on the phone. We screen shared. He walked me through. We fixed the issue. I published it out. It worked. I thanked him at Code Camp for it.
Nice.
This was way back in the fall when we had the last Code Camp, and so I said thanks for helping me out. And I got that much better. You know what? It was a good learning experience because if everything had worked just exactly the way it had been in the video, sure I would have learned it, but having that one spot not work and then having to dive in, and this had to do with port mapping. I was wondering what was wrong.
Yeah.
Container port mapping was the thing that I had to learn.
So many people, and somebody even said it tonight, but time and again in the hands-on lab, whenever things have kind of gone wrong, and either I've kind of figured it out, debugged it on stage, figured it out, or said, oh, you know what, I've had this problem before, here's what it is. Those are the times when people come up after and say, hey, I really appreciated that, like, that went wrong, because that was going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And now I can see how to get out of it. Like tonight when I said to myself, oh, shoot, I didn't use the same resource group for everything. I wonder if I can change it. And I think you said, like, oh, a few people in the audience said you can. And I was like, okay, well, let's see. And we did it. And I realized, oh, okay. Well, that wasn't so hard. But I even heard someone in the audience say, like, great. So when that happens to me, now I know what to do. Right. I heard someone say that. So, like, if you think that you're not cut out to teach stuff because you're afraid you'll make mistakes, people actually appreciate the mistakes and then you figuring out how you got out of them.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, people don't search the internet because things went right.
Right.
They search it because something went wrong.
Right.
And they need to find somebody else who it also went wrong for.
Right.
And then took the time. This is why I blog. It's because I'm going to need to know that information later. Future Tim is going to need this information.
I did this once.
And current Tim is going to blog about it, and it doesn't matter if anybody reads it or not. I will reference it later.
You know how to find it again.
I know where the answer is.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I think we've probably been talking an hour. Wow, that went fast. So I guess to your point, Rich, is we'll see if we are gonna. I think the plan, at least if you're okay with it, is January 9th. We're gonna try for 8:30.
Yeah.
See how that works with family schedules and everything, and we'll see if we can be right back online here next week at this time.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you joined us today, Tim, and I'm glad we got to talk a lot about Azure DevOps and learning about what you've been working on. And I'm glad that everybody joined us on stream. So if there's anything else from anybody, otherwise we'll see you all next week. And be sure to reach out to us on Twitter, or even just catch us on this stream and ask any questions, and we will try to find the answer if we don't know.
Yep.
So good seeing everybody. Have a good night.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.